Hey everyone, welcome back to Fed Up with me, the eternal flu-infested, miserable one at the moment. Fed Up, guys. Anyway, joining me today is Wax from the band Wax Mekanix. How is it going today, man?
Well, thanks for having me, guys. I'm here in the US and it's the weekend, and I'm talking to you about music, so that sets me pretty good.
Yeah, nothing better, man. Music's good for the soul. Always great conversation with it. The first thing I want to start with before I feel the need to mute with a coughing attack already, I always like to look at the artwork with artists, and this one, both the cover uh, and the inlay, you've got that. I'm going to try and do my best to do it some justice. It's got that real psychedelic feel to it from that classic kind of 60s era, but I also see this. I hope this isn't just my bad interpretation here, but kind of like if you look closely, you can see a skull with the purple eyes, I think, maroon eyes, sorry, with its mouth open, possibly the earth in one of the mouths, and then I'm not sure if that's a star, but it's almost like a bit of a cosmic horror vibe. That really caught my attention because I thought that was quite an interesting duality. So I'm just curious who developed that idea in the artwork for you.
Well, I developed the artwork together with uh, a Portuguese artist friend of mine, Diogo Soares of Gargantula Creations. Now, my Portuguese is pretty poor, so that's my best effort with my American accent. So
That's not much
Diogo
better,
and
man.
I Diogo and I worked on it for a few weeks. I let him hear the record before it was finished. I'm sorry, before it was released. I just finished it, and so a little bit of inspiration there. We took some of the iconography that you're seeing there from some of my earlier releases. Specifically, I had a 2020 release called Mobocracy, and there's some
Boom.
iconography that was used there. And so we wanted to. My The way that I've been rolling is trying to tie this batch of records together because the music wants to be together. So I wanted the artwork to do that. This batch
Mm.
of songs was kind of coming out as psychedelic, heavy, poppy, but I wanted to make sure that I was capturing all of that and still tying it to some of the previous records. So there's a lot of nuance in there, and most of the great sort of deft work that you're seeing is due to Diogo's expertise and his creative brilliance. But we worked together on the concept and picked the colors, and I've been sharing with some of my audience. If you look at some of my feeds, some of
Mm.
the other color schemes that were used in some of the artwork. So we landed on this one because it felt right for the moment, and we reserve the right to change it up if we want to.
Yeah, well, that's another layer in itself. It's really
Yeah.
interesting to hear. I always get such a different answer to that question because some people they'll be like you said, I'll work with the artist, we'll develop the idea, and someone no, we'll give them free reign, just go and do whatever. But yeah, it was very interesting. I thought multi-layered feel to it. So I'm gonna try my best to pronounce the name of the album,
You
considering
want? Do you want? Would you like me to coach you through it?
I would, yeah. Believe it or not,
Okay.
I'm studying 3 languages, but I always try to subtly, you say it, then I know how to pronounce it. That's the approach
I,
I'm going.
This was one of the reasons I did it was so that it was fun and interesting and challenging. But once you say it a few times, it kind of rolls off the tongue. The word is psychotomimetic.
Psychotoma,
Psychotomimetic.
psychotomimetic,
Mimetic. There you
mimetic,
go. Per-
psychotomimetic. Yeah, it's got a nice ring to it, actually.
Psychotomimetic. It'll roll
Yeah,
off the tongue.
yeah. This is me being a nerd. You know what? Immediately before, let's say I hadn't heard the music, just hearing that, and this is just how my nerdy mind works. I guess it almost makes me think of like India, with the guru, Shambhala, and everything. Just that word in itself. That's just what floats in my mind hearing it. So, um, probably completely off there, but I just wondered what is the inspiration for the title?
Well, first of all, let me say that it's flattering, and it is the goal of mine to let people interpret things the way they want to, because that's the
Yeah,
beauty of art, isn't it?
yeah,
So
exactly.
there, no interpretation's wrong. There are, great art that we all love, that it means something unique to us, and that's all that it really has to do. So I'm flattered, and it's inspiring whenever somebody talks about my work in a way that they'll say that it evokes something in their minds, and that's a great thing. What it means to me and what it means to other people, it's I think that I hesitate to really explain the work because of this reason that I've just tried to, you know, uh, uh, brutally articulate here. So, Psychotomimetic, what I found was that the songs were coming out a little trippy, but really heavy and a little bit on the dark side. And I wanted a title to reflect the way that stuff felt to me. And by definition, psychotomimetic means anything that induces a bit of a psychotic reaction or a sort of psychedelic or trippy vibe. So it's a medical term. And when I stumbled on it, and I've known this word for a while, but when I stumbled on it, the hair on my arms, the back of my neck kind of stood up.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, okay, that's the way it feels. So I had this visceral response to it whenever I was thinking about it. So that's what it means to me. There's a little bit of ominous nature to it, and it also implies a bit of kaleidoscopic, quasi psychedelic trippiness, and that's why I picked it. Psychotomimetic.
Psychotomimetic.
There you go.
There we go. There we go. Language is fun, folks. Always a lot to learn.
Yeah, songwriters are like that. All my life I've been infatuated by and have played with words, and this is right up my alley.
Yeah. It's funny that the first guest today, who is from Italy, and I'm learning Italian, but I don't know enough to have a conversation at the moment. So there's only a few words. And my next strongest language after English is Spanish. And he put me on the spot. And you find, when someone puts you on the spot, normally you can roll off a sentence quite fast. Well, because I got put in the spot, I was a bit, and then as soon as we were done with the interview off air, I was fine. But yeah, just go with it, I guess. Well, the opening track, Pillars of Creation. One thing, before I even ask you about the inspiration for the title and the lyrics, and then we'll obviously get into the music. One thing I noticed when I listened to, the whole album, I don't know if, anyone else has said this, but there is kind of a real spiritual sense. I feel some introspection as well. And there seems to be a harmony there underneath it as well. And that's just again, more of the feelings that I drew just from listening to it, on the first listen. Well, this is quite a deep spiritual album as well, aside from, the dark themes. So would that be a fair compliment to say about your music?
Oh yeah, this record had there was some introspection as well as some psychedelic influences as well. A lot of my work has those kinds of themes and archetypes in them. So yeah, at my I've been doing this for a few decades. So I kind of found my voice. So my work kind of reflects that the whole way from Mobocracy, which was my first release with Electric Talent in 2020, through Blunt, and now into Psychotomimetic. They all have this underlying combination of dark and light. So there's a little bit of redemption in there, but most of the archetypes have to do with a bit of a spiritual nature. Although I'm not, deeply organized or deeply involved in organized religion. Most people on the planet feel some sort of connection with some sort of spirituality, and I'm no different than that. But yeah, Pillars of Creation has a little bit of that going on, along with some other things too. But the rest of the whole record kind of does.
So that would be a good point to follow on with Pillars of Creation. What inspired the title and the lyrics. I've read through them, but it's not for me to explain, that's for sure. So could you tell us a little bit about those themes and then how you match the music to go with the words as well?
Sure. Well, Pillars of Creation is a nebula that is that's out in the solar system, it's out in the universe, not in our solar system. So what I wanted to do is with this record is wanted to take some well-known songs and retool them, and those that are of my age know this particular tune, and I'm not going to telegraph it. So those that have listened to the record closely will find that this is a relatively famous song that I've taken the fundamental melody and I've retooled it, and I've also changed the lyrics a bit. So it is a bit of an interstellar a discussion about an interstellar trip of somebody trying to find a new home and then getting part of the way there and figuring out that, hey, maybe the grass isn't always greener, and that maybe we should have just taken care of the place that we were at. So that was one of my ways of saying that you can be outward and inward looking all at the same time. So that particular famous tune, again, I'll let whoever wants to be adventurous enough to look into it will probably understand the melody that's there and the original retooling of it. So I was kind of operating in a folk tradition. You know, folk artists take well-worn melodies and themes and they'll retool them and bring them into their own time and place. And that's what I wanted to do with these. There's 3 songs on the record that I retooled. And again, I'll let the audience dig those out and figure those out. I think they're pretty easy, but it's going to be fun to explore it. And that was what Pillars of Creation was, a bit of an interstellar travel trip. And it gives that psychedelic, it's got a little bit of a psychedelic vibe as well as a futuristic kind of thing.
So it's there's familiar themes there. And I think a question that we are actually have been looking at the moment is, not to go whole sci-fi nerd here, but looking towards the future, what could we learn from the past, and how are we going to be as human beings when we perhaps go to another planet? Are we going to repeat the same mistakes that we've done here? So there's a very, I feel, familiar, relatable question that we've always had pertaining to that. So that was very interesting. So when you retooled the music, did that go with what you were really feeling as well? I think I want to put this particular twist on it or interpretation to really, I guess, give it another kind of identity.
Yes, again, following in that folk tradition that I'm such a fan of is my particular at my core, I'm a rock kind of artist. So it's all guitars, bass, and drums cranked to 11 and lots of howling. And you know, I also am a big fan of pop music. So I wanted to take this really sweet, well-known. It's an acoustic. Originally, it was an acoustic song with this gorgeous melody. And I wanted to make it heavy, I wanted to make it dark, and I wanted to make it futuristic. And I wanted to make it forward-looking and with this little hint of spirituality in it, which is what I think we arrived at. So I wanted it to be a heavy, trippy pop song with folk roots. Does that make sense?
It does. And yeah, and I think with how you've explained that folk tradition, I think it's how the I've always kind of followed oral narrators, you know, before they had written records to keep, electronic now, but to keep that history, alive, to preserve those traditions and those cultures. So it's another way of doing that. The next song, I think, "Once Upon a Lie," that's quite an interesting dark title. So could you tell us a little bit behind how you came to choose that one for the song?
Well, I had this heavy song, and the lyric started to come together, and I found that I was kind of the pond reflecting the oncoming stone. You know, artists take stuff in and they run it through whatever filters and prisms that we have, and then we give it back. That's our job. Well, not really our job. That's our craft. So that's what I did. So a lot of things were going on around the world, and especially here in the U.S. where a big chunk of our society is sort of thrashing around and throwing this fit in mass. And essentially what they're trying to do is, from my perspective, was to kind of burn things down. So it's a bit anarchic, right? There's a bit of anarchy that's taking place over here in America and in other places too. So that was my way of saying that. There's a saying here in the U.S. that says something to the effect of, "Doc, it hurts when I do this," and then the doctor says, "Well, stop doing that." So we've got big chunks of our society that are kind of doing that, which is, I'm going to do this, and it's not going to be good for me or for anybody else, but I just kind of want to see how it feels. So this was my way of taking that notion and running it through a prism that I'm a big fan of, sort of Dr. Seuss, who's an author of children's books. I don't know if you have them there in the UK, but we do, it's a bit Seussian as well, sort of tilted and slanted and childlike and juvenile. So I like that title, Once Upon a Time, and Once Upon a Lie came to me as I was writing it, and I thought and it fit melodically and the cadence. So in general, it's my way of saying that there are big chunks of people out there that are destroying things and bringing bad actors to bear on society, just to see how things feel. Let's push it, see how it goes, and so we're going to do that here in the U.S. until one of two things changes: either people get tired of that, or something happens and there is a permanent sort of paradigm shift in society. So that was just my way of saying, oh, I see this going on, and there's a big chunk of our society that's doing this. And I ran it through this Dr. Seuss prism, kind of.
Yeah, you do, regardless of where anyone lies politically, no pun intended there, I'm not playing on the title. Just realised that as I said it.
Saw what you did there.
Yeah. Okay, someone would be there like, he's on the payroll, he's clever PR. No, honestly, I'm not, folks. They'd be thinking, right. It is, I feel, where anyone is politically, I do feel we've lost that balance where critical thinking seems to have vanished. It's, I will just shout louder than you, threaten you with violence, or actually do violence towards you if you are on the opposite side of the fence to me, instead of trying to communicate, kind of reach a middle ground. And it seems to be more mass hysteria. No one is saying, I'm not saying for a minute that things don't need to be reformed, that we don't need to change some certain things with the way how, not going overly, preachy political here, but the way, I guess, how things are run. Of course, that there's always room for that. But when it's violence towards people, destroying ordinary citizens' homes, businesses, what good is that? That is doing no good to anybody. That's creating more division. You're then harming your own community and people. No one is going to listen to you when you behave like that. And sadly, as you were saying with the paradigm shift, you worry then if somebody can come in and take advantage of that and end up putting themselves in that position of power again. So there's a lot of relatable lyrics there in the song. As you said, a commentary on things that have been happening, not just in the US. And I think it will make people think for sure. And hopefully we can try and start to do better. Really do. So.
Well, guys, we're living in our own time, and it appears to be more acute now. But if you go through history, this has happened throughout history. I'm a student of history, and everybody that's living in their time that sees societal upheaval going on thinks it's most acute and most pronounced in their time. I think that's what we're going through here. I'm trying to be an optimist. I'm pretty sure that we will come out of this and cool heads will prevail. But until we are, as a society, tired of throwing this fit, then we're just going to keep doing it. So it's that matter of, Doc, it hurts when I do this, and the doc says, well, stop doing that, and they keep doing it until they're tired of doing it. So I'm pretty optimistic about it. The first line of the tune is, I just arrived at a place I don't recognize, where friends are enemies are friends. So that dawned on me, and that's the feeling that I get. So you never know who you're going to uncover when you walk up to somebody in a pub or at the petrol station. So you have to be careful. I think we'll get out of this. I'm optimistic about it.
Yeah, I think there's many people are wanting to get back to like a middle ground, that balance, and and certainly and fans of people destroying their own communities, etc. Either. So hopefully so. Have to remain optimistic. We have to do, because without that, well, there would be no point. There would be no goal or striving to be better, to do things better. So yeah, for sure. So with that said, when you are matching the music with these lyrics, is it important then to really have that feeling within the music so that you feel it can flow very nicely and it reflects the nature of the words?
Yeah, in some cases the lyrics come first. In other cases, music comes first. I remember these were back and forth a little bit. I had some of the lyric, and then I had some of the music. It wanted to be a bit ominous, and there was this dark, heavy groove that was going on. I still wanted it to move people from the neck down as well as from the neck up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So. Again, it wanted to be a heavy song. It wanted to be somewhat psychedelic. There are strains of David Bowie in there. There are strains of Iron Maiden in there. All kinds of influences that I've taken from, a little bit of Neil Young and Bob Dylan's in there as well, and some Woody Guthrie. So it was a bit of a potpourri, a cornucopia, or whatever other cliche you want to use, of influences. And the good thing was that it was more a reflection than it was a statement. I'm not trying to dictate. It's more of a social statement than it was a political statement. Just that's what was coming out.
Yeah. Interesting. So the next one, Shrew's Fiddle. This is first impression as of quite a folky title. Was with the fiddle. Already makes me. I'm going on a tangent again. It's weird with folk music, and I mean this in a good way. In titles, always makes me think of, instead of like, it always makes me think of sea shanties sometimes, or like pirate towns, and I see people with fiddles dancing around, like in between, I guess, the 16th to 18th century. Man, I'm such a nerd. So we'll get back to your actual music. I should put a disclaimer out: warning, random nerd interpretations.
Not at all. That's why we're here. It's interesting stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what was it? A heavy folk influence in the title, as I'm thinking, just seeing that on first glance?
Well, it is a period title. A Shrew's Fiddle is a punishment device from, I believe, the 16 and 1700s. So you probably had them there in the UK quite a bit, which was you would strap two people that had an argument in basically a stockade, where they had to face each other and work their stuff out. So they were bound together to sort this out. And I thought that was a pretty interesting title. So I've known about this particular device. It wasn't a torture device. It was more of a societal punishment device. Yeah. So Shrew's Fiddle, and this tune, those that listen closely will find that I have retooled. This is the second song that I have retooled and mined. And those that know about it, again, I'm not going to telegraph it, but those that hear it and know it will know it's an incredibly famous song. And so I took a song that's well known and added some lyrics to it, kept some of the lyrics as well, built on it. I went on a bit of a fantasy trip, which was I imagined myself being asked by the original artist to say, hey, I have written this song. What would you do with it? So like this movie, The Matrix, I took the pill and went down the rabbit hole to see where it went. So that's what I wanted to accomplish. I built on it in such a way that I was having a conversation with the original artist and that wrote it. You'll find that I'm doing so I'm doing some of the lead vocal, and one of my friends, who is a lead singer of a relatively well-known, heavy, funky, groovy, dirty, fuzzy rock band called Crowbot.
Oh, Crowbot, yeah, heard of them.
Do you know about Crowbot? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Brandon Yeagley is the lead vocalist there, and Brandon has helped me on quite a few of my records. And he and I are trading off some lead vocal lines at the beginning, and he's helping out on backing vocals. So I wanted to introduce this sort of, again, mining this folk tradition. So when I started out the song, I made it sound like an old, scratchy 78 record from the early 1900s, and then kicked into this heavy, snarling, strident, slamming, quasi psychedelic metal tune, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, so it's like the in a sense the past and the tradition coming to meet the present.
Yep.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Oh,
I wanted to make what was old new again, and reference the new to the old, and I feel like a link in a chain, and this particular song was really illustrating that.
Yeah, for sure. Coming to the next one, Two Left Feet. On the whole album, this was one. I don't know if anyone else. Everyone will have their own tracks that really caught the ear, I would imagine. This one particularly did Two Left Feet. I don't know what it was about it. Maybe it's the lyrics. It reminds me of those like dark folk songs, or even like dark country music, where it can be acoustic based. It's very mellow, but it's still got that creepy, sinister atmosphere, and the lyrics are very haunting, and they often can be a story about something not very nice, and that's probably the biggest understatement I've ever said on the show. But, yeah, this one, there's something about it, Wax, that just got my ears, and it had that impact on me, and maybe it's the chorus matched with the music as well. So just again, could you tell us a little bit about what inspired the title and the lyrics, and in particular how you match the music up for this one, because I feel it really does have that atmosphere.
Well, Two Left Feet is we've all in America. I'm not sure about the UK, but this is a cliched statement to saying, "Hey, I'm clumsy." What I wanted, So Two Left Feet can also be interpreted as somebody that is not conforming to what is, I guess, considered typical, acceptable. So this is another societal sort of thing that I've been feeling here recently, which is that this notion of our friends and neighbors and colleagues being demonized because they are the other, whether it's a cultural thing, whether it's an ethnic thing, whether it's a personal behavior preference thing. So we're feeling a lot of that here in America, and probably around the world. So again, this is my way of saying, hey, I'm feeling all this, and then I'm giving it back. So Two Left Feet was my way of saying that, here's how some of these people that are not conforming to what is a mythical stereotype might be subjected to. And we've got a lot of that going on here in America. And hopefully, again, that'll dissipate and go away. Will it ever go away? I don't think so. That's just part of the human nature experience that we've got. So what I was trying to do with the music was to do what you've just described, which was, again, to reference some of the things that are, even though I am a rock kind of musician and artist, I also have this deep affinity for American country music as well as folk music. There are great artists like Johnny Cash and Hank Williams that were steeped in here in America, and I didn't escape that influence as well, even though I still like Black Sabbath and AC/DC, and there's a little bit of that in there as well. You'll hear this bit of fuzziness that's almost Jack White, sort of White Stripes kind of thing, and that's due to the folks that I was working with, because we wanted to capture that. In the American South, there's this almost quasi-religious society that or societal component, which is a lot of sort of effusive preaching that goes on, and that was what I was trying to interject into this. So It was one of the things I wanted to do was to make it fuzzy and heavy, but also reference these kinds of things that I'm alluding to, which is a bit of country music. So there are murder ballads that are famous in country music, and so I wanted to give it this little murder ballad edge with a little bit of Jack White and a little bit of Black Sabbath and some Beach Boys and Beatles and Queen in the choruses.
Wow.
So I was helped out by my buddy and good producer, who is a Grammy-winning guy. His name is Dirty Harry. So Dirty Harry Zelnick, he helped me put it together. I've been friends with Harry for a long time, and we worked together on this record, and enlisted one other fella. So it was the three of us, me and Harry and my buddy Barney Cortez. So Barney is an unknown Philadelphia musician, pretty much, who's is a hired gun, who's just this wonderful gunslinger that plays under the radar quite a bit. So Harry played drums, I did acoustic guitar and the vocals and some percussion, and Barney did some bass and some guitars. What we wanted to do was to give it almost this ominous Creedence Clearwater revival kind of vibe, mixed with Johnny Cash and Black Sabbath and the Beach Boys. Now, that's a big bite, I know, but that's what we were going for.
Yeah, but it's like I said, it's got that atmosphere. It had that impact, and as you've just been saying there, and I was, when I've heard some of those, particularly dark country songs, and for those that don't know maybe what we're talking about here with dark country music, I guess it's like an underground form of country music, folks, and there can be, as Wax said, murder ballads. I love and you hear the words, and the music can be very beautifully played, very, very dark, very sinister and creepy, as I said last time. But the words can be something out of a horror movie sometimes, but also, it can be based on the real life, I guess, monsters. So it's if anyone's ever curious, it's certainly worth checking out. But you can get that. It's got that crossover with dark folk music as well, because you can even get that in folk music and blues, the same. Yeah. So
there's a lot of heavy metal that has quite a dark edge to it. I'm steeped in heavy rock for sure, and there's a lot of mythology and a lot of heavy dark images. In the bridge of Two Left Feet, the Undertakers are breaking ground. They all show up when the sun goes down. That's both heavy metal and dark country. So that was a cool place to be as a songwriter. When I sort of stumbled onto that line, I was like, whoa, that touches those two bases for me. I'll be using that.
Yeah. So. And that must be fun and exciting, especially as a musician and a songwriter, because that is just a regular person, that stimulates my imagination, and I'm already seeing like the movie, like an undertaker getting in a hearse in some dark road in the middle of nowhere or something like that. So that must have been fun and exciting when you can draw from both those elements.
Yeah, sometimes they write themselves, and frankly, some of them I can't take responsibility for them. They kind of come through you. You don't invent them. You're just like this conduit. I know that sounds kind of artsy fartsy, but that's kind of how it works. I feel like I'm an antenna, so I'm just pulling a signal down, which is kind of fun. I know Noel Gallagher, who I'm a big fan of, says it's like fishing. You throw your line in the water and you reel them in, but you have to be fishing at least to catch something.
Yeah. I've heard when I've read about authors, how they've wrote a novel as well, and sometimes, they've said they've just gone in like this quiet room somewhere, and they don't know where this idea has come from, and they've just had to write it, and they've just wrote nonstop, and there we go. There it is. Things like that are fascinating.
Yeah, for people to do the kinds of things that I do, and I'm not the only one, and I certainly don't do it best. But if like Bono from U2 or Bob Dylan or anybody that's been doing it for a while, they've got reams and reams of things that they'll just write down. So I always have my antenna up. That's the way I think about it. My ears are always open, and my mind is always open, and I'll hear something I'll read a newspaper article, I'll hear somebody talking on the street, it'll be the television, and something will just resonate with me, and I'll say, I need to remember that. And sometimes I'll invent things, but mostly it's accumulating them So I'll accumulate lots of ideas, and they'll all sort of want to be the ones that want to be sympathetic. They'll congeal together, and so I kind of follow them more than I do lead them anywhere. There are very few of them where I say I'm going to set out to write a song like this. That doesn't happen a lot. It's mostly here's what kind of developed. I let them sort of come to me. I don't go after them.
Yeah, so it's that sense of natural manifestation and drawing inspiration from everything around you as well.
Yeah, that's my job, or that's my craft. That's why I do what I do, and I've been doing it ever since I've been a child. Is taking things in and giving them back and passing them through whatever filter and prism I have, and it's been fun and it's been rewarding. But other people do it different ways. You can be a craftsman and sit down to write a pop song, and that can be done, and I admire that, but that's not what I'm about right now.
Yeah, for sure. So then the next one, and I remember you saying there's three, there was three retoolings here. I did recognize one of them, which I don't think we've got to yet, possibly. So Jeremy Hillary, it says some interesting lyrics actually as well at the start. Noticed I'm pausing before it. Believe it or not, that's not the worst example I've ever had of I shall just say alternative lyrics. It wasn't. I'll just say that I was chatting with this with a death metal band from Montreal, and one of their songs was based on something that it was one of the craziest stories I'd heard of, but yet very funny, but it had actually happened in real life, actually over here as well. It happened in London, and we were having a giggle about it. And when I remember when I was just a bit like I am now, when I was phrasing the question, I was trying to keep a straight face, Wax, and all three of us, even the band, we just collapsed laughing. We couldn't do anything else. So takes a deep breath. So first, before getting the lyrics, what inspired the title of the song? And you have an interesting opener. That's what I should say.
So Jeremy Hillary Boob. Jeremy Hillary Boob was a character from Yellow Submarine. The movie Yellow Submarine, Jeremy Hillary Boob, PhD. He was the quintessential nowhere man. So that was what I was mining there. And I'll give this one away. What I did is I retooled from Rubber Soul, Nowhere Man by John Lennon. Wow. So if you take a serious listen to it, and what I did is I added some lyric to it. And basically I wanted to make, I love the song. So, and I love Lennon, and Lennon's been a big influence on me, as anybody that's followed my work can see that. I mean, he's in my DNA as much as AC/DC is in my DNA, or in this particular case, Black Sabbath. I'm a huge Black Sabbath fan. And if you listen to this song musically, I wanted to bring together Black Sabbath, John Lennon, and a little bit of the Beach Boys and some Queen. And whether I accomplished that or not, that was really the mission statement. But I retooled Nowhere Man, used some of the lyrics, left some of them out, made up some new ones, and reintroduced those that aren't steeped in it. Beatles, information as much as I am, reintroduced them to the quintessential Nowhere Man from Yellow Submarine, and his name was Jeremy Hillary Boob. So I didn't invent that. I would like to have taken credit for it, but whoever did was brilliant. I loved it. And as a child, when it was introduced in 1968, I was a child and I just loved it. And I was just taken that the Beatles were writing songs for young kids like me. It tickled me, and it was a joyful thing. So this is my way of paying respect. It's, I may be viewed as a heretic or drawing the mustache on the Mona Lisa or whatever, but the point was it was intended with love and respect and appreciation. And this is, again, my way of, in the folk tradition, of taking something that is old, that is well known, and bringing it into a contemporary situation and putting my own creative spin on it. So couldn't have picked a better one to do it. And hopefully I didn't offend anybody, but if I did, sorry.
Well, I think it's just well, that's actually it sounds like a very innocent explanation. It's just my gutter mind.
No,
not something else.
No, I know what you mean, and until I got to be a teenager, it just was a funny word. And when I was a child, I didn't know what it
Yeah,
meant, and then as a
yeah,
teenager, it tickled me in a different way, obviously. So
yeah, yeah. Oh, it's a fun one for sure. A good story behind it.
please go back, and I recommend everybody go back and take a look at Yellow Submarine, and also listen to it in its entirety.
Yeah.
Rubber Soul by the Beatles.
Mm. I'm just gonna have to pause a minute, folks. Disclaimer alert: I've been saying this in every single episode so far. I'm still recovering from flu, so sometimes I have to pretty much do bad movie effects in the background whilst I cough. So one moment, y'all. Oh man.
God bless you.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm wondering how that's looking at people who are watching some of the shows at the moment. When every so often I'm just in the background, but oh well.
No, this is great. I mean, this is what makes this type of interaction and bringing interesting art to people, is that we do it in this unique way, and I wouldn't apologize for it, mate. I think you're
Oh,
doing
thanks,
great.
man.
Keep up the good work.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, well, I do everything organic. Like I said in the email, it's not scripted. Of course, I'll listen to the music. The guest, have a look at the videos, but everything is literally like we had bumped into each other, or I know you, and I'm like, yeah, what are you doing this afternoon? Right, let's meet up. We'll have a drink, whatever. And then you say to me, oh, I'm working on this new album. Oh, what's it about? And to me, and that's exactly the way it's done. So it hopefully has a bit of a soul. It's organic, so it's not just soul works. Can you tell me about this?
Yeah.
And the face
Well,
is like that, and it's just,
no, what I'm really enjoying this, and I'm sure your audience does too. So I think that yes, we should follow our own inspiration, and what I try to do is I don't even worry about the audience, guys. I just do what I do, and as much as I appreciate them, I don't create for them. I don't, I don't do what I do because of the audience. The audience is there because I do what I do, I guess.
A lot of musicians have said that on the show, and it's something I think with any kind of art. At first, it has to be for yourself. It has to be, because if you don't write it or play it for yourself or have that love there, then nobody else is going to. No one else is going to recognize it, and that audience that likes that particular genre or art, whatever it is, are going to come and going to gravitate to that. If you try, my limited opinion, I guess, if you try and write for other reasons, not genuine, there's no love in there, there's no life in it, that's going to come across as shallow. It's not authentic. It's probably going to come out subpar. No one's going to really feel it. It's like if you see, I've said this a lot on shows, but sometimes on daytime TV, and you see like a session musician in the background, you can see that it's like the day job and the going through it. So I'm waiting till this evening so when I can actually play what I want to play. So, yeah, for sure.
Well, Noel Gallagher, who I mentioned, I'm a fan of, and Noel is I think he said it best. I think, and I'm paraphrasing here, but I want to give Noel credit because it was a pretty wise statement. He said, "I think the audience should find the artist, not the other way around." Yeah. And I said, "That's pretty profound there," and I like that. Yeah. And so. Good job, Noel. I'm trying to toe that line, and it's instinctive too. Those people that do it for that reason, those days of everybody wants to be Metallica or Taylor Swift, and that's really not why I'm doing it. And most of the artists that you're encountering probably aren't doing it for that reason.
Yeah,
so far, so good.
Yeah, exactly. So here's coming to we're near near the end of the album. We'll obviously talk about the video and some other areas as well, but this is a joyous title, key to the end of the world. But interesting lyrics as well. Wake me if I'm dreaming, pinch or give me a shake, a terrible mistake has just been made, I'm surrounded by delicate things, I might break, I'm flawed, I'm ordinary and afraid. I just reading that gives me the sense of, say, someone could be awake at night in a room by themselves, and they are laying out their soul to bear, something profoundly human about it, and a vulnerability as well. It's like I said, laying everything out there. And I thought that was a really interesting opening for the lyrical side of that song as well. So could you again just tell us a bit about the inspiration behind it, the lyrics, the title, and then of course how you match the music to flow as well?
Well, I was kind of writing the music at the same time I was writing the lyric. In general, this is a recounting of a dream I had, which is, the famous dream song is a Paul McCartney dreamed yesterday and called it Scrambled Eggs. So I was I dreamed basically a big part of it, and in short, it was a dream that I had that in America, the president's given the nuclear codes.
Oh.
So the president is given the nuclear codes, and essentially it's one guy that controls that. Now, obviously, we've had some people that we can trust in that, and then in this dream, I was imagining that I was elected president, and they gave me the nuclear codes, and I said, "Wait a second, I'm not your guy. I'm not righteous enough. I'm not bright enough. I'm not human enough. I'm a flawed person." And somebody needs to take this away from me. And in this dream, I was trying to give it back to everybody that I was encountering, saying, "Hey, I shouldn't have these. I'm not responsible enough. And you've got the wrong person." It was a bit of imposter syndrome. I would imagine that all kinds of world leaders go through, whether it's prime minister or whether it's a president of the U.S. So that's what it was based on. The title came very simply from, again, this is I was mentioning earlier where I've always got my antenna up, and I'm always listening, and I always have. It's just the way I function. So I was watching television one time, and in America there is a television program called Pawn Stars, which is a pawn shop. There you go. So one of those guys on there said that someone had brought in a key that was in one of our nuclear silos, where you put it in there and you turn it, and it enables some instructions to launch nuclear missiles. And he famously said, "Well, geez, what you've brought in here is the key to the end of the world." And my head about exploded whenever I heard that. Literally the hair of my arm stood up. So I didn't have to write that one down. That one stayed with me. So I got the title from them. So this is really about a dream that I had about having, this Cold War. Because of my age, I'm steeped in this Cold War mythology, and it's been we've all been marinating in it for decades. And the song has been written much better by other people. For instance, the two that really are great Cold War tunes are Sting wrote Russians after he left the Police. So I'm a big fan of his. I'm a big fan of the Police and a big fan of Sting. So he had the song Russians, which was a brilliant song. And then we all know Crazy Train. Well, if you look closely at the lyrics, what's it about? Bob Daisley, the bassist of the Blizzard of Oz, wrote with Randy Rhoads and Ozzy and Lee Kerslake, Crazy Train. Heirs of the Cold War is what we've become. Inheriting troubles, I'm mentally numb. That was Bob Daisley, but that's part of my DNA for sure. I'm a huge fan of Blizzard of Oz's first two records. So that's what happened. And it sounded like it wanted to be a folk song. So again, I'm quasi-murder ballad, and I needed something like that on the record to kind of make it dynamically a little bit interesting. So I could have all kinds of heavy drums, bass, and guitar, but all my records have a little bit of what I call a sonic palette cleaner, if you will. And this one was going to be it. So I wanted to put this one on here. Yeah,
and it's it's a song that could be relevant. I mean, you talked about, I guess, I'll put it in this sense, and others are referring to the period now as the first Cold War, and they're arguing now, are we in a second Cold War with the current political situation? So that dread and fear that isn't always talked about, but is certainly underneath the surface. I think that makes this song relevant again with the current conditions around the world. It's a song that certainly that hits you with the lyrics too. So coming on to the close of the album, and we'll talk a bit about the video for this as well. Look at You Now. This was one that I did recognize when it come to the I think it was one of the choruses. So again, I just wondered if you could break it down for us a bit, how you've done some retooling there with the various parts, and then again matching the music, and then we'll have a little look at the video as well.
Sure. Well, Look at You Now is my attempt to write one of these great epic songs, and to do it slightly differently in my own style. So it is simply just piano and vocal, which is a huge change for my audience because they haven't heard this from me before. So one of the things I wanted to do was to sort of clean the slate, if you will. We had all this heavy rock coming, and then have this thing at the end. So sonically, I wanted it to be a bit of a palette cleaner as well. So it followed up Key to the End of the World, and it really defined that. There's some really great rocks bands that have some wonderful tunes like that. One that was really famous for me was by Kiss. The song was called Beth. It was off the Destroyer album in 1976. And they did a great job with that. So their audience was just gobsmacked because of this particular tune. But it was a well-crafted song, and Peter Criss, the drummer, sang it wonderfully, and none of the other band members played on it. So, but I've always, as a songwriter, which is really what I do, what I wanted to do was to put my hand at something that was epic. So I modeled it after some epic songs like Bridge Over Troubled Water, Don't Look Back in Anger, Every Grain of Sand by Bob Dylan, Let It Be by the Beatles, let's see, Walkin' in Memphis by Mark Cohn, and there are a handful of others that have been done wonderfully better than that, better than mine. So this was my approach at writing something epic. And I was mentioning some of those particular tunes, like Hallelujah, which is a great Leonard Cohen song, in the lyric as well. So I was paying respect to that. It was also steeped in me touching again on this folk tradition. If you listen closely, it's of a gospel form. And I know that's a little weird for a rock artist like me, but hey, if you're a member of my audience, then you have to be ready for some twists and turns, and this is kind of what I do. So that was what I really enjoyed it. I tried to do it heavy, frankly, and it just didn't want to be that. So I wasn't about to force it to do something it didn't want to do. It wanted to be a gospel song, and the lyric has a bit of a duality to it. So you can view it as from one perspective, which is sort of darkness and light. So on the light side, you can view it as an affectionate, sentimental song that is sung to somebody that you have affection for, a loved one, a friend, a child, a colleague. And that was genuine. And when I was going down that road, that's a pretty slippery slope if you're a songwriter, because boy, you can slip into some weird sentimentality that is almost cliched in a way. So what I also found was that as I was writing it, it could be viewed as the narrator talking about themselves, about this inward look. Are they judging themselves, and has their life been righteous? Has their life been redeeming? Have they had successes and failures that they could have handled differently? So part of it was inward looking, part of it was outward looking. So a little bit of self-examination. And the video kind of worked off of that notion of an inward looking narrator.
I was just going to comment on that when you made that point, because on the video, you know, you're sat there with a blindfold, wearing a straight jacket, and when you get, I think it's about 2 minutes in, just over 2 minutes in, then you there's a part where you stand up, and when we get towards the end of the video, you stood up again, you take the blindfold off, you're looking, it's almost like you're breaking a fourth wall, like you're looking straight at the camera. And then there's the scene where you're sat like this, and you're looking, and like you said about that person reflecting, looking back. And what is interesting, the end of the video, then it says Finn, and it's got like that really historical way, the historical film, you know, how they made the silent movies, Charlie Chaplin, and so I thought that was a really interesting blend that you did to show that with the song, with the lyrics, and then the way it finishes it, because I'm getting my nerdy imagination's going crazy here. But for me, someone sat down to, watch that and listen to it, because it's been done in black and white in a historical film sense as well. I feel that emphasizes the point with the song, and it also supports that looking back, as if, are you watching an archive of someone looking back at the history of their life, and what can you hear in those words that maybe you could incorporate in your own life and do maybe differently, or relate to, oh yeah, I've made these mistakes, anything like that. I mean, my mind's going crazy. It always does that. Never switches off.
Well, it's flattering and it's satisfying as an artist that it's evoking some thought and some images. So yeah, I made it with an American filmmaker. His name is Alex Wagoner, and Alex and I have done some work together on some other records as well. And yeah, I wanted to make sure that we were pushing against the sentimentality that was inherent in this song. And the stronger part of the song for me personally was that inward-looking part. So once I latched onto that as I was writing it, I found that was more appealing to me as a songwriter. So that was an interesting place to be, to find that it was exhibiting this duality simultaneously. That's not usually things are monolithic and almost monotonic when you're writing songs. There is a particular message that this thing wants to get out, and this one had this duality that was cool. And the look of it, the look of the video was specifically to sort of prompt whoever's looking at it to consider the other part of the other perspective of the lyric. And did we get there? Don't know. I hope so. It was fun to make. And again, I make things for myself, and if the audience follows, that's great. So I kind of ignore the audience and what they're gonna want to get out of it, and usually this is where I land.
Yeah. So let's clear my throat for a second.
Sure.
With that said, how have people reacted to the album? Since it's released, and I've got a follow-up question on this as well.
Generally speaking, it's been positive. I haven't had anyone do what I thought was going to happen, which was going to say, "Hey, you took some of these really well-known songs and you've drawn the mustache on the Mona Lisa." I was expecting that, and that didn't happen. What happened was what I was hoping, which was some of the songs that are on this record are completely original compositions by me, and I wanted to juxtaposition those and have them stand side by side with some of the greatest songs ever written in popular music. So I wanted my work to be put up against those. And I've had a few reviews that have seen that, and that have basically said that I took a big swing and didn't strike out, as what we say here in American baseball. It's been positive. I wasn't really afraid of anything, but I thought, well, some people are going to be really offended by what I did, which was I took these songs and I retooled them. And boy, the ones that he wrote to stand beside him are not up to snuff. And I didn't get any of that, frankly. I got the other thing, which was, these that are standing beside these are holding their own. So that was satisfying from a creative standpoint.
Do you think sometimes people appreciate something that is a bit different, that steps outside the box?
I sure hope so. And anybody that follows my work knows to be ready for that from me. And I just started making a new record. Doesn't sound anything like Psychotomimetic. Doesn't sound anything like Blunt. Doesn't sound anything like Mobocracy. So my audience, if there is such a thing, they know that they're following me, and I'm not, trying to do anything for them. And doing it different. Yeah, I've been kind of branded as, which isn't a deliberate design on my part, but I've been branded as an artist that changes things up, and that you can expect the unexpected from. And that's a good place to be creatively. It sounds pretentious coming from my mouth, but that's not what I was setting out to do. Again, I'm following them. I'm not leading them anywhere. And it's happening again in this new record. And hopefully when it's finished, I'll drop it on you and maybe we can chat again about it.
Yeah,
if that actually happens. But it's been fun and it's been rewarding. And I do it simply for creative satisfaction. I don't do it for anything else. And so far, it's really been satisfying that I've been able to make records that have stood up and been appreciated, I guess.
Yeah. Because very interesting answer, because I always wonder when you've got a band or an artist where I'm gonna try and put this as nicely as I can, I guess, where
Go for it.
they're multi-genre and people don't quite know where to put them, and sometimes people can be, oh, this is just too much of a headache for me, I'm not even going to try and listen. Well, you may hear something totally different, something unexpected, as you were saying, that might grab you a different way. Always give something a chance. So as you were saying, have people usually always been, well, you did say this, favorable to you with drawing from all these different genres of music? I mean, the influences that you mentioned with this particular album are obviously there. I even heard a little bit of an REM vibe coming through as well. I thought that was there, recognized.
In some cases, yeah, REM was big for me. That said, I want to make sure that it's perfectly clear that I love AC/DC. AC/DC has been part of my musical DNA, and I do not want them to do anything different. I don't think anybody that appreciates AC/DC wants them to do anything different.
Yeah.
So we love them for what they do, whether it was Bon Scott, whether it was Brian Johnson, whether it was Mark Evans, whether it was Cliff Williams. They were doing the same thing because that's what they did, and their audience came to them. But on the other hand, I will also speak the same way, with the same passion and effusiveness, about Queen and about the Beatles. They explored all kinds of different musical styles. AC/DC, love them. Listen to AC/DC just about every day. Listen to the Beatles and Queen about every day, and some contemporary artists too. So I'm not making any deliberate move. I reserve the right to make a monolithic AC/DC album, but I also reserve the right to make something that maybe, evokes influences by Queen and the Beatles and the Beach Boys too.
Yeah, with what you feel. So I'm going to do my best. Interesting, with what you're feeling at that time. So yeah. I'm going to try and behave myself here and not try and reveal too much about the next album. I know you said it's going to be very different. So would we be safe to say, is it a heavy focus at all?
Well, it's certainly going to be a rock record. So it's not going to be an acoustic record. So it's at this point, I'm still whittling down the candidates, and the songs are written, and now they're taking shape in the studio, and they are sonically sounding like where I was kind of going with Two Left Feet, but a little bit heavier, a little bit darker, maybe. Thematically, I think we've gotten a bit away from the societal stuff. And maybe more of an introspective, interpersonal kind of thing. But again, I've got maybe, a dozen candidates, and some of them may make it and some of them may not. It's still taking shape. It's a really fun, creative place to be. What I do know is that it's not going to sound like any of the other 3 records that I've done with Electric Talon recently. So, and that's exciting. And I'm eager to finish it up. I'll take my time. Probably looking at late spring of 24 before you see a new record from me. I'm going to be dropping a new video, though, for Psychotomimetic here sometime in January. Look At You Now was the recent one, and there were a couple before that. And I've just finished a new video for Shrew's Fiddle, and that'll be fun. So you'll see that in January.
Yeah. Just you mentioning that already. I'm seeing somebody sat on like a beer keg or a barrel in one of those really, old. I tell you, it's so difficult, Wax. With I'm probably going to bore people to death by repeating the same thing on every episode, but it's awesome having a naturally overactive hyper imagination. I see everything visually in my mind. It's always like a movie. Like when you were talking. And you were detailing your answers, I had the film playing in my mind, and I'm like that with anything. The downside of that is when you do need rest. So the science of you, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. It doesn't switch off. It's horrible. I remember when I was at college, I had this finance exam to do. And look, maths isn't my strong point at all. And something happened where it just clicked. And I had to get up at that moment. And I spent the whole night, right until, say, 8 a.m., writing this thing, and got it all typed out on the computer. Emailed it in, took it down to college as well, made sure that I had a copy in hand, still did that. And I couldn't have, if I went to sit down and do it now, I couldn't have done that. And it was amazing how sometimes those sparks can just happen. And they always say creatively as well, right, make those notes or record something, even on your phone, if it's notes to a song or something, like the hum that melody so you don't forget. But yeah, it's amazing when those sparks happen. But as I say, the downside, it doesn't always shut off when I want it to. And it can easily get hyper, especially if it's talking music or movies or things I'm interested in. It will start to get overactive and hyper. In particular, if it's something I've got in common with that person, it'll be like, oh yeah, forget what you were here for. Let's talk about that. You asked Stephen at Talon Records, we did a sports nerdathon. When he was recently on the show, we ended up talking about football, NFL, stuff like that, because he had a video reflecting one of the retro games and that. So I was like, yeah, so we'll get back to them. I'm terrible at times, folks. I did notice you've got some interesting merchandise as well. You've got all the various tanks, shirts, patches with the artwork from your releases. I like the drum head stick you've got, drum head and stick set. That's a really nice one.
Lots of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, the merch can be varied. You have to do the obligatory, beer koozie, patch, t-shirts. We all love that. I have all that stuff too. When I was making the records, I wanted to have some sort of ephemera, not really ephemera, but some items available that for those people that like to collect that kind of thing. I know I would love it. Whether it's a ticket stub or a guitar pick or something like that. So when I was cutting some of the drums, I do some guitars, I do some drums, do the vocals, obviously, and other stuff. So those kinds of pieces of merchandise are there as well. And it's a lot of fun, and my audience seems to enjoy it. So I'm going to keep doing it.
I tell you what, and you've got another interesting piece of merchandise as well from Mobocracy, and that's the handwritten lyrics. I think that's the first time I've ever seen anything like that.
Well, I see these kinds of things that are at auction, and not my stuff, but real famous. A Day in the Life by John Lennon, or a Bob Dylan lyric appears, an original thing that was written out, and somebody's gotten hold of it, and then they've sold it on auction. And I don't have that kind of money to be able to spend on that, because they're just tens of thousands of pounds. So. What I did though is I had a few of my audience say, "Hey, I really like this song, and would you do that for me?" And I said, "Sure." So I'm eager and happy to do it for any of the tunes that I have, and it's flattering when people ask me to do it.
Yeah, I bet it is. It's such a compliment. Do you have any more planned merchandise come to support, the current album?
I do, yes. I'll be within the next, in early 24. I just finished with Diogo, who's the artist of the album, a cool new T-shirt design, and we'll be seeing that. I'm also retooling the patches and the beer koozies as well, because they seem to be big sellers and people love those, and I'm interested in having some of those myself.
Yeah, there's I'll say it like this: there's an entertaining one, Wax Mekanix beverage koozie.
Yeah,
look at that.
Yeah, that was fun. When I was first releasing some of my solo stuff, people were saying, "Who the F is Wax Mekanix?" So, plus decided to plaster that on some stuff.
Can you imagine taking the koozie at a holiday dinner at Christmas? So how have you been? And you just put that in the middle of the table, and everyone just looks like, yeah. And then you could see, the person who's acting as a representative. So who's up next for the? Shall we start the dinner, or shall we get the? Yeah,
I've had some discussions with some folks that say you can't sell that to people under 18. I said, well, how am I going to police that? So but it's a lot of fun. It's meant with a bit of humor, and it was a response to I was getting this when I was first going out. Who the f is Wax Mechanics? So I thought it was fun, and it's also reusing. If you remember, the Rolling Stones were famous for that. Keith Richards was going around saying, "Who the f is Mick Jagger?" And he had T-shirts that were made, and he was wearing those in the '70s. So I kind of stole it from Keith, which is I'm not the only guy that's stolen from Keith, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, rock and roll, metal, punk. There's always that humor in it as well, and witty. And sometimes people can get the wrong impression, the wrong idea, you've got to look. It's just humor. That's all it is. It can be a form of It's just another form of art.
Right, and that's the way I thought of it. It was meant lighthearted and to break this. I didn't want people taking me too seriously because I don't take myself that seriously. And this was fun, and it paid homage to the Rolling Stones and Keith Richards. So it served a couple of purposes. And when we do shows, darn it, don't those things sell like hotcakes?
Oh, they really do. I think it's again because people want to own that bit of humor as well. And like the first thing to my friends, look at this, look at what this is. It's hilarious. And I would do something like that where I would take it and say, "Pop." So, how's your Christmas been since? Oh, hey, Auntie. Just looking, things like that. Funny, man. Do you have any? I know we're close to the holidays, but I'm just wondering, do you have any shows before the holidays start coming up?
No, we don't have any booked before the holidays. It was funny little anecdote was supposed to have a gig a few weeks ago, and I had a bout with COVID, so I had to actually cancel it because I was too infected with COVID to be spreading it around. I do a lot of busking, so busking fills that need between gigs. I'm talking right now with the folks in Crowbot about maybe going out on tour with them in 24. Before the holidays, though, nothing. Although I do every time I head to the studio, I do a little busking in the Philadelphia area, and that's like a military exercise, like a guerrilla warfare. You show up and you see what happens. So when I have a new tune, I'll play it in a busking situation to see if I get stoned, meaning rocks thrown at me. Yeah. Or if people accept it. So that keeps me sharp, and that scratches that itch to perform live. So, and I've done that all over the world, frankly. So wherever I am, I do a little bit of busking and see how it goes over. In a more controlled scenario, whenever we get the whole band together, hopefully we'll be doing more of that in early 24, but nothing before the holiday.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that's touching on that, as you were saying, with the folk music.
Yeah,
kind of, that's paying homage to that tradition as well. A real baptism of fire, because you are really then seeing how people are going to react to music. Not everyone will be very nice wherever they are around the world. That can happen. So it's a real raw way of gaining that feedback for sure. Like the stand-up comedians when they're gigging around some of these dive bars when they first start, but they all say, look, hey, they always appreciate doing that because they genuinely see the response, and they always say if you can play, in kind of one of the world's worst dive bars, wherever it is, you can play anywhere then. And I think there's probably a lot of grain of truth in that for sure. Yeah. So sorry I cut you off there.
No, I was just going to say I showed up 3-4 years ago at a pub in Sheffield, off the whatever the highway is, and had a meal and pulled out my guitar and played a bit, and it was a mixed reaction to some of the songs. Some of them they liked, some of them they didn't. So Sheffield's a tough place, and baptism by fire. It's more like a sporting event than it is art at that point.
Sheffield. I know the area very well. Very industrial area historically as well in the south of Yorkshire.
And the home of Def Leppard.
Yeah. The famous rock club there as well. Don't forget when I'm live. I remember, it's funny enough, there was a celebrity here, like a singer who does a documentary series on TV, and she went to Leeds, went to this like really old market that's been there a long time. And College A. McDonald, and she went up talking to one of the market keepers, this guy, and first thing he said, and he had like real broad accent as well, and this was hilarious. I'm sure you maybe encountered this in Sheffield. She comes up And she says, can I just have a word with you, love? And he turns, I'm doing my really bad Yorkshire accents here. And he turned around and he goes, hey, you're not going to sing, are you? And that's the first thing. And she didn't expect that at first. Hey, she took it in good heart and had a laugh. But I was like, that's the first thing this guy said as soon as he come up. Not like, oh, it's pleased to meet you. Oh, yeah, this famous person come up to me. It was like, you're not going to sing, are you? But you've got to laugh when you get people like that who have no filter, where it could be literally the president, prime minister, or whatever, and they're still going to say whatever.
I love that. Yeah. The human condition.
Yeah, for sure. As my throat's really starting to probably see me coughing a lot now. So sadly, I'm going to have to, bring this to a close. But I always like to give guests the opportunity, not just to shout their albums out and the work. I notice I've been saying albums because I thought I'm probably going to get tongue-tied trying to pronounce the title again and go on a coughing fit. That was why. Method in the Madness. So do you just want to promote where people can find you on the web, certainly where they can get the new album from, and anything else you want to shout out as well?
Sure. First and most important is, guys, thank you so much for the invite. I can't overstate how much I appreciate you inviting me, and in general, what you do for me and artists like me. It can't be overstated. So just know that you're appreciated and that the way you're doing things is admired, and keep doing what you do, how you feel fit to do it. That's the first and most important thing.
Thank you.
I'm on the internet as all artists are that do what I do. Simply find me at Linktree/Wax Mekanix. You can Google my fun name that you see here. Electric Talon Records knows what I'm doing at all times, and nobody's going to remember URLs if I spit them out. But if it's meant to be, people will find me. If not, then we'll find another way to touch base with them. I really appreciate what you're doing and how you're doing it, though, guys. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome. It's been such an interesting, enthralling conversation. Hopefully people will enjoy that and appreciate it. It's always good to chat about the themes, the meaning behind songs, the whole creative process, and some random giggles and often the tangents thrown in as well. There is a bit of a rebrand coming to the channel, folks, with genres, etc. But I will be looking outside the box at times from the genre base to bring in something different, which is always good, just so it's not always the same for you. So but more about that soon, folks. I'm kind of still thinking and developing, so I need to go and get something for my throat again. I want to send a shout out to Wax, of course, for joining me and having such a good conversation with me. Really appreciated, man. Shout out to Stephen at Talon. Oh, you're very welcome. Shout out to Stephen at Talon Records, and check his band out, Stone Eye, as well. Greatly appreciated, man. Thanks for connecting me with Wax. And everybody take care. I'll see you on the next episode, which is tomorrow at 4 Eastern, I believe. Everybody have a good night. Take care. And as you know by now, it's uncomfortable pause moment where hit end stream and there's that delay and I look like I'm constipated going, has it stopped? Has it stopped? So in 3, 2, 1, let's do that.